Okay, so I'm back. I'm running low on battery, so I won't be long. I've been compacting my octagon-shaped cane, and I cheated a little bit because I got frustrated with it, and what I did is I made it into a cylinder, and I compacted it as a cylinder, and then I went along afterwards and we flattened out each side. So I know that this is my outside edge of my octagon, so I've been pushing down between each of the white lines to make it back into more of an octagon shape. And as usual, of course, you lose some of the end, so I'm just going to slice down into that. Haven't let it rest very well, so hopefully it doesn't smudge the pattern too awful much. Okay, so here's what we've ended up with. I think it's quite pretty. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my scrap piece just to kind of show you that if I get these nice and flat, I have to fight with it a bit to get all the points back, but you can do it if you want to make sure you have a good sharp octagon. Or I could have just kept flipping it one side at a time and using the roller to flatten it, but I'm not a patient woman. So I usually cheat and make it round and then make it back into an octagon. So here is an octagon, and here is an octagon, and here is an octagon. And basically if we were to put these, oops, I have to fix this one a little bit first. If we were to start making these into a pattern by butting them up against each other, we're going to end up with kind of a mosaic of octagons. And for that, obviously, you're lining up your pink edges like so. So this is what we would end up with in a pattern. So where the pattern meets in the center, you end up with a different pattern. You end up with this little triangular, almost like a three-leaf clover kind of look pattern, which is also very cool. So this one obviously was my end piece. It didn't really come out very well. It kind of mangled the center. But just to give you an idea of how the edges would line up when we put them together, this is what we've gotten out of that cane. So I could compact it down a little bit more and do some other things with it, but I think I might like to make some pendants and things out of it. So I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to set that aside. And I had said earlier I was going to show you how I make some of my marbly looking stuff. So this is what I had left over from all this. I've got some pinks. Oops, that's white. I'm going to keep that the way it is. Some pink scraps, and it's got some gold in it and such. And then I've got a whole bunch of blue and white scraps. And normally what I would end up doing is I'm going to keep the pink out of it because there's not a lot. So I'm going to put all my blue and white scraps and dark blue scraps and silver and everything, and I'm just going to put it all together and pack it down. And normally what I end up doing is you just kind of, like you would if you were doing a mirror cane with your scraps, you twist it around and mangle it and squish it. The only thing you don't want to end up with is you don't want to end up with your bullseye or your spiral still looking like a bullseye or a spiral. You just want to mangle it up enough to make it not recognizable as a cane that it was without having a certain pattern. And once you do this, you can actually just pack that shape into something. You can make it an oval or a round or whatever and use that itself for a stone. If you want more pattern, you just keep twisting and keep flattening. So it's really, really simple and easy. You don't have to do much to it. If you want it to be a perfect shape, you can put something around it and pack it down, or smooth it down on the edges and then cut it out. You can also pack it into something more or less flat. And this is a handy trick to have too, is to use one of the plastic wrappers. And you can use it to smooth your fingerprints off. You can also use it so that when you cut with something like this, because it's pretty thick still right now, but you cut with the plastic on top, and then what you end up with is a very rounded cabochon edged thing. See, it's the plastic, because it was still on, it pushed down the edges very nice and smooth so that it's very rounded on top. And again, you don't want your fingerprints on there for that kind of thing, so you smooth it off with the plastic between your fingers in there. And so you end up with a nice little marbly looked cabochon that you can make the bails and the special edges for and all that kind of stuff if you'd like. You can also take the bits and pieces, and now that I have kind of an even amount of colors, I'll put the two together and I'll break them up in pieces so that it's not all big chunks of blue together with big chunks of pink, and roll it around in my hand. And what I usually do with this is you can roll it out by hand with your roller kind of thing if you want to, but I find you get really dramatic effects if you just put that right through your pasta roller, because then it stretches out the marbles. And you start out thick and you just kind of put it through. You can put it through one way or the other way. If you don't like it, fold it over and do it again. But the more you put it through, the more you get these long, stretched out marble effects. So again, I could fold this in half and say, no, I don't really like that. Fold it in half, figure out which side you like the best. I think I want more colors, so I'll fold it this way and I'll put it through again. And it gave me kind of a really pretty marbled color. So one side's got more of a long stripe, and one side obviously has marbles. Now, the more you do it, the more it's going to blend. So you don't want to do it too often. You can do it a couple times. The more you do it, just the more blended you get and the more kind of muddy your colors get. So now this is very thin because I've put it right through the pasta maker. So what you can do is take a scrap piece of something else, make it the shape you want it, make it round, make it circular, square, whatever it is you want to do with it. If you want a big square, something, you want to make a little ring or something, you can make a square and you can lay that over top. And then put your plastic on, like we did with the other one. I don't know where I put my plastic. And cut it into the shape you want. Do I have any kind of, I have a square shape here. This obviously isn't rolled out flat enough for that. It could be. I think I have a heart shape there too, so maybe I'll use the heart shape. I'll put the two together and I'll just show you a nice big heart shape. It should be big enough to cover that. So again, you could do the same thing with this scrap as you do with that scrap. You don't have to use your good scrap. You can use the stuff that you have run through too many times and it ended up looking muddy. You just want to make sure you press it down enough that you haven't got to worry about air bubbles. Lay the piece that you like down. Lay the plastic on top of that. Make sure there's no wrinkles. You want it to be nice and smooth. And then you would get your cutter, whatever shape it is. And just like you did before, you would press right down. Sometimes it'll cut through the plastic, more often than not it won't. But it slows it down enough to round your edge. That's what you want, is you want to have a nice rounded, smooth edge. So then you end up with almost like a pillow bead, because it's nice and fat. And it's quite smooth on the edges. You can see it rounded all the edges nicely, and you've got your nice marbly pattern on it. And that's so easy. And when I did the other video where I was making the fancy edges and things for all of my cabochons and stuff, this is more or less what my cabochons were. I was using scraps and making scraps into things like this and baking them. You can bake them first and then make your backing piece for it and bake it again. Or you can do it all at once. I could take this now and roll out a backing piece and do whatever I want to it now and be just fine. Okay, so, but you can decide later on if you want to just put a hole through it and just make a pendant out of it. Anyways, as usual, I've talked a lot and I've made a very long video, and it's probably going to be in a couple pieces by the time I edit it. But thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed watching fly by the seat of the pants caning and a little side tutorial on using up your scraps to make these nice cabochons and marblies. So take care, and feel free to come back and check out stuff again. I do have a couple of henna videos I just did recently. I haven't done a lot of polymer clay because my craft room is not yet set up. Bit of a procrastinator when it comes to downsizing and organizing. But I'll keep puttering away, and when I have days like today, I'll make myself a video and pop it online for you. So until then, take care. Bye.